Good evening. Can you hear me, Joe? Yes, sir. Hello. Good evening. This is the December 11th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll call the roll. Riley? Here. Kennedy? Here. Schmidtke? Present. Budney? Here. Nadu? Here. Wilder? Here. And Banaz. Before we get started with our normal agenda, I'd like to make note that tonight we have a few changes on our board due to the last township election. We had a couple vacancies, and we have two new members to the Public Services Commission for the first time at their meeting tonight, David Nadu and Ron Wilder. I'd like to ask each to introduce themselves briefly, a little bit of history, what you've done in your background, and just take a minute and do that, Dave.
Dave Nadu, I live on Canterbury. I've been a resident since 1983, so it'll be 30 years this spring. I drink the water, I drive on the roads, I flush my toilet, but I really think it's a commission that does some good for the community, and I look forward to it. I've served on a couple of commissions in the past, but neither one of which was of this magnitude.
Very good. Thanks, Dave. We're glad to have you here. Ron?
I'm Ron Wilder. I live on Hazelnut Court. I've been a resident of Grosse Ile for a little over 15 years now. Grew up in Southgate, so I'm a true downriver rat. Lived downriver all my life. And I'm looking forward to the experience of working on the committee. This is my first time experience for something of this nature, and I look forward to it. So there we go.
Well, good, Ron. Thank you. Welcome to you, too. Jim Budney is recently elected to the Township Board of Trustees. Congratulations again, Jim, and thanks. We're glad to have you. Jim is going to be the liaison to our commission from the board. Well, I'm glad to have you serving with us.
I'm glad to still be here.
Jim brings a special talent. He loves to go to the wastewater plant. So. and also, we're very fortunate, Ted Banaz, who's the Township Treasurer. Welcome, Ted. Ted has been a member of this, involved with Public Service Commission for 28 years. He's been treasurer for 4 years now, and Ted's going to continue. He certainly has half the history, as does Les Schmidtke, about public services on the island in his head, and he's going to serve as an ex officio capacity. And in doing so, Ted would be able to participate in any of our discussion, and I hope you do, Ted, and counsel us, give us advice as we go forward with the many issues we're confronted with. And I'm really glad that you're continuing to hang around with us. Appreciate it. So with that, next I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I'm not aware of any changes. I don't know if staff is.
No.
If no one else has any changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as distributed.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and supported that the agenda for the December 11th meeting be approved as distributed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. One other thing, since it's the beginning of our new operating year, as far as the political spectrum of the township is concerned, we have lost a vice chair and secretary through the last, the unfortunate death of Frank Kent and election of Wally Pozias to the township board. So we need to elect the vice chair and the secretary. And I'll open the floor for any nominations.
I'd like to nominate John Myron as vice chair.
I'll second that.
All right. John Riley's been nominated for vice chair and has been supported. Are there any other nominations? John, do you have any comment?
No.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So, John Raleigh, thank you, John, your vice chair. We have to elect a secretary, open the floor for nominations for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Phil Kennedy as the secretary.
Second.
It's moved and supported that Phil Kennedy be nominated to serve in the role as secretary of the Public Service Commission. Any discussion? Phil, anything from you?
No.
Any other nominations? If not, we'll close the nominations. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. You have minutes in front of you from our November 13th meeting. I wouldn't expect the new members that didn't participate to vote on these since you weren't involved, but well, those that were, we think have a majority still around. And any comments, changes, corrections? If not, entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 13th meeting.
So moved.
Is there support?
Second.
Moved, supported that the minutes of the November 13th meeting be approved as distributed. If no further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. The next two items, for Ron's sake and David's sake, number 8, we just received the report, but we'll certainly answer any questions. And I'll describe that when we get to it. But number 7 is approval of the bills. We just get a look-see, our commission does, at the major bills. And you notice, I thought maybe I'd highlight a few. The pages are all numbered when our excellent assistant, Linda Benator, puts together the packets. All the pages are numbered. If you look on page 8, just call to your attention, you'll see the figure in the middle of the page off to the right-hand column. Our water purchase item was $89,000 for the last month. That's our wholesale water rate to Detroit. And generally our water, when you look at the budget, it's about $1 million a year that we spend purchasing water. On the next page, 9, our contract with Waste Management for refuse hauling and recycling, the monthly fee there is $52,000. I'm just highlighting some of the big ones. And next biggest item is really I found on page 13, and it's to Earth Tech and Joe Keefe, who's sitting in the audience. Joe works for Earth Tech. Joe is the manager of our wastewater plant. We have a contract with Earth Tech. They completely operate and maintain. What's that?
United Water.
United Water. Sorry. Well, Earth Tech was purchased 2 years ago by United Water. 2008. Well, why does it say Earth Tech on the form, Barry?
You need to talk to Miss Ann.
So someone should get up to date on her record keeping. Ted, I know that you'll get after her about that. Anyway, Miranda, you should call her about that.
I will.
And anyway, so our contractor that runs the wastewater, I just wanted to call those to your attention. Are there any other questions on some of the bills that we paid out of public service accounts?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just a question to, I'm sure Barry or Lorinda knows this, the very first thing on page 8, conference and workshop. I just wondered what that was.
Yeah, that was the MERS conference that we attended in Grand Rapids.
Oh.
Well, MERS is the retirement system
Yeah,
for the
2 people
employees.
from our department went to that, myself and one of the secretaries.
All right.
Any other questions? So, gentlemen, feel free to ask any questions as time goes on about anything.
The only question I have, and it kind of relates to item number 8, is what is our fiscal year? Is it July 1?
No, it's April 1st to May 31st.
Okay, thank you.
No, March 30th.
Oh, March 31st. That's my second.
So it's not a 13-month?
It's not a 13-month. I'm sorry, April 1st to March 31st.
Thank you.
And that's pretty much true for all townships in the state. All right, so we've had a chance to look at the vouchers. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All right, moved and supported that the vouchers be approved as vouchers number 13,118 to 13,127 found on pages 7 through 14 of your packet. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Number 8, we just normally review the statements of revenues and expenses, and again, what I always do when I look at these is just try to evaluate where we are in the fiscal year in terms of what percentages are displayed as being spent or not. And we're pretty much holding true. We're 2/3 through the fiscal year, so I didn't notice anything that jumped out at me. If you have any questions about any line items, and this involves our water system funds, our sanitary sewer system funds, the operation of our wastewater plant, and our refuse. Any questions from anybody? Hearing none, we'll receive and file the report. On page 20, next item on the agenda is our treasurer's report. These are basically, Ted, you correct me if I'm wrong, all public works accounts, the ones I just mentioned, water, sewer, drains, and so forth. What we started doing a few years ago, if you gentlemen turn to page 21, is we asked the treasurer to give us a report on page 21, the backside of the treasurer's report, the balance of our accumulated funds for our drain projects, bike paths, and road improvements. This is really important. Later tonight, we're going to have a preliminary discussion on the proposed budget for 2013 and 14. And I always try to look at these funds on page 21, particularly as we discuss drain improvements, which we will tonight, and road improvements. So you see the fund balances. We have over $1 million in our drain fund, and in our road fund we have $368,000 at present. When taxes are levied, which tax statements went out as a Christmas card, as you said last night. So when taxes are collected over the next few months, up until February, our new take on the road millage of 0.4 of a mil would be about $220,000 that will add to this. So that's the kind of money we will have, and we need to keep a balance in there, but we're going to talk about those two funds in particular tonight. On the bike path fund, I would just, for your sake, the newcomers, the township board created a new commission that's responsible for both maintenance of the bike trails and new construction. So there's a new pedestrian or pathways committee?
Pedestrian pathway and bike
Pathway commission, and they're citizens like we are, and I think they're taking everything over except maintenance. Or that's
why you still see it here. I don't think the determination, number one, not all the bills have been paid that we have been billed for, such as that minus $74,000 you see there. So once this whole thing gets ironed out, that decision will be made. I would think the maintenance will probably stay in the hands of the DPS department simply because that's what we do. I don't know that it'll go beyond that, but they'll probably make the recommendations to us, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay, and if you recall, I mentioned that this commission has been planning to build some of their construction money for a bike path along Horse Mill between Meridian and East River by the Presbyterian Church there. And some of the maintenance we do is we'll do some patching on the asphalt surfaces, roadside mowing, tree trimming, crack filling on the paths, and so forth. If a section fails, we go fix it. So that's basically that's all about. So I suggest you keep this page 21 set aside. We're going to discuss capital improvements a little later. Okay, moving right along. Did we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report? So you have the treasurer's report. I talked too long. Maybe we'll, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
In support of the treasurer's report, for November be approved as distributed. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion's passed. Next, Barry, manager's report.
Good evening. Number one item on my manager's report is to remind everyone out there that yard waste ends on December the 14th. Friday, December the 14th will be the last day that Waste Management will pick up yard waste for this year. They will resume collecting it again April 1st. So just as a reminder, and just as a quick review, this new contract that we just started November the 15th with Waste Management extended that yard waste date to December the 14th because prior to that it was November 30. And we found out through history, last 4 or 5 years, that out of the 5 years, about 3 years, we needed to extend it because all the leaves and stuff were not on the ground come the end of November. So we extended it a couple additional weeks, and that's how we ended up with December. It's actually December the 15th is the official date, but the last day for pickup is 14th on Friday. Any questions on that? Item number 2 in your packet starts on page 22. It's our annual landfill rate notification. As a quick review, all of our trash that's picked up over here on the island is transported to the landfill in Riverview. We have a contract with the Riverview landfill that I think expires in 2014. And it's made up of about 12 communities, a consortium that was put together of 12 communities to negotiate with Riverview to get a preferred rate, you might say, for dumping. And so that contract is in effect for us for another couple of years, and at which time it probably will be renegotiated through the consortium. In the packet you'll see, and what it is every year, based on the current contract with Riverview, they're entitled to a CPI increase. And this year it was 3.3%. So if you'll look on page 24, it gives a breakdown. It shows the November 2011 rate at $18.80 per ton. If you multiply that times the 3.3%, the new rate was $19.42, and that's per ton dumped at the landfill. If you go to page 26, you'll see in tons across from gross yield of what we actually disposed of tonnage, 3,782.56 tons of material, of trash, actually was disposed of at Riverview. And then on page 27, it gives a little bit of a further breakdown. It just gives the percent of increase or decrease over the year prior, and it looks like we're down about 0.5%, roughly, over last year's disposal amount. And if you look back, it's not in here, but if you look back for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, it has been steadily going down. We have been actually disposing of less material every year. And a lot of that is made up of people doing additional recycle. There's a lot of recycling that takes place here on the island, and that accounts for, I think, some of the reduction. And then also, I believe, the economy has a little bit to do with it also. So right now, this year over last year, we're down about 0.5%. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Okay, so this is an automatic thing. We don't have to approve anything.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, this is automatic, and what it is the only thing that would change this rate further than the CPI would be if the total tonnage made up of the consortium dropped below a certain amount, then the Riverview would be entitled to additional compensation, because we guarantee them a certain amount tonnage-wise. If we drop below that, it could increase some more, but it didn't do that this year. We're still in the same bracket we were before. So the only thing that affected us this year was the CPI.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to the next.
Item number 3 is just a status update on the drainage project on Wilbur and South Point. I'm still waiting for one signature for the easement that we need to have in place over there before we can actually install and move forward with the job. And there again, it's not a case, I think, of that person that's refusing to sign. This person is not in town often. The wife has already been in and signed her signature, and we're just waiting for him to come in and sign on the dotted line, and we can move forward with this project.
Is there any indication?
The last time I talked to him, they never really indicated to me exactly when
Just that they were going to do it?
That they were going to do it. I'll put in another call. I hate to pester them continuously, but...
Well, they're holding up a project.
They are.
I feel like we should say their names on TV.
I don't even have them here tonight.
You know, it's been over 6 weeks we've been waiting for their signature.
I know.
We're trying to solve their neighbor's drainage problem.
I will place another call to them. They're very nice people. It's just that...
Well, you know, I guess...
Fax the document, wherever this guy is, and if he didn't sign it, fax it back.
I think you should push for that, and if you want, I'll call her, as chair, this week or tomorrow.
Okay.
Give me your name. We got to get this resolved. It's too bad you're missing all this weather when the ground's not frozen.
I agree.
And do the excavation work. So, try to reach her tomorrow. I'd ask you to email me her name and
I'll have I can have her
call her as well.
give.
It's time to, I think, time to hassle people.
Yep, give Lorinda a call tomorrow. She can call you. I'll be out of the office tomorrow.
Okay, well, Lorinda can do it.
Wouldn't John's idea make some sense? Can we do it via fax?
I can check into that and see if we can. Yes.
I think you can.
Oh, sure you can. Fax goes back to this there or something else. That could be done.
We could have mailed it to him by all this time and had him mail it back.
Sure.
Yeah, priority mail.
Yeah.
So I guess, Barry, one way or the other, fax it or mail it to him wherever he's at. It's Christmas coming up. If he lives there, he's likely to be home for Christmas. I don't know.
We'll look into it further. The last item is a status update on the replacement of the boiler at the wastewater treatment plant. The boiler's in, it's operating, went through the necessary inspections, and I think it's working okay, isn't it, Joe? So that...
Offhand, gas bills about $30.
Are they? Really?
So we can't hear you.
The gas usage, daily gas usage, looks like it's dropped about a third from what we normally experience for that building, so.
So that's good. So it's in, it's operating, so that project is pretty much done.
Very good. Any questions on the boiler replacement? Okay, the discussion items, move along here. Next are committee assignments. Everybody has in front of you an up-to-date roster. Thank you, Lorinda. And if any one of you find anything that's incorrect on it, I'd ask you to just get a hold of Lorinda. She's bottom right hand and correct your information, and she'll get a new one out. But it's been a long time since we've had one that's been up to date in terms of catching up with all of us with our changing. Lorinda keeps us up to date, but we haven't been up to date. At any rate, you know, in the past we've had three or four committees. I don't think we need a refuse committee active right now. We just entered into a 5-year contract. My proposal is that we just bring ourselves, if something comes up, we need a committee, we can always appoint an ad hoc committee. My suggestion is we just appoint 2 standing committees, one on roads and drains, one on water and sewer utilities. And split the commission up 3 and 3.
Okay.
I'm opening that up for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good idea. one of the things we want, and especially we do have quite a few new members, we do want them involved, and that is not a bad way to do it, and helps them, I think, learn what's going on this commission. So I certainly would be in favor of it.
Okay, maybe, I just thought of this, look for, even Ted to comment on this, maybe for each committee, we ought to have a chair for each subcommittee. You know I have my own thoughts about, for example, roads, what we ought to be doing, but when we get it, we can hold that topic for future consideration, but later tonight, we're going to talk about, for Barry's purposes, capital projects that we'd like to see in next year's budget. Just throw ideas out, that's the point of it. He's going to come back in February with the budget and listing of things that might be feasible, so I thought we'd give him a little guidance tonight. But, you know, one of my goals, I know, is for Church Road, that in 2013, I would like to see a committee work with our engineers and whoever else you need to come back with a plan. What are we going to propose to some point, and how are we going to fund any improvements on Church Road? And that might take some time, or a few committee meetings. And then water and sewer, same thing, especially water, some of our water projects that we've delayed. So, anyway, I guess we could go by a raise of hands of people. Let's start with the water and sewer. Les, I'd like you to be on the water sewer committee.
Yeah, that's what I'm raising my hand.
So who else would like to work with Les on the water sewer committee? So Phil and Les. One more. What's that? John? Okay. So this side. You're right. Water and sewer committee. Ted, you have a thought?
Yes, I would think it'd be very important that Mr. Budney sit on that committee, because that water and sewer is going to involve some of the capital work that we're going to have to do at the wastewater treatment plant. And he's going to be our point man.
All right.
And I would think that it's pretty imperative. You know, I will attend any of these subcommittee meetings as a historian and the treasurer, but I'm not going to be an active part in the voting of it, but I can be an active part in the, but I think, without a doubt, the water and sewer is our big issue going forward, and I would think that it's going to save a lot of time and effort if Mr. Budney sits on that committee.
And I have no problem with that, and I agree with Ted. Actually, if it's okay, I would sit on both of them. Because
well, I think the issue, Jim, is that we try to have subcommittee meetings at like at 7 in the morning or 7:30. You don't have a quorum of this commission. You don't have to post it. You call the meetings at, you know, whenever the engineer might be available. And there's no problem, I guess, if we post a meeting that we're going to have a subcommittee meeting. You're welcome to attend any of them, but I was thinking it's easier if you just have not a quorum.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they can't be, you know, because I might go to one or two of them, too. Okay?
Yeah, but that's...
So the three members then would be, for the water sewer, yourself, Jim, John, and Les. Phil, would you go on the roads committee?
Sure.
Roads and drains?
That's fine.
All right, and we'll talk about the chair of each group at the next meeting. Then for the roads committee, I guess that leaves David and Ron and...
How about I get on the roads committee?
All right, here you go. Very good. So, thank you. We have two committees, and Lorinda will get the committees out. The committees really haven't had a need to meet, but I think we will do that a little more. That means we still have our full get-together early April, where we drive all the roads, look at drains and other projects. We do that together. Excuse me. Well, okay, now we're beyond that. We're talking about capital budget items. And so what I've asked Barry to do, starting on page 31 and running to the next several pages, is we thought we'd discuss capital budget items tonight. As far as the township budget process, you get started right about now, but by January you're really into it. Right, Barry?
Yes.
Ted, and in February, you'll bring back to this commission your proposed operating budgets and capital budgets.
A draft, yes.
And that doesn't mean, for capital, I mean, we can talk about wanting to do projects, it doesn't mean they're going to be funded this year.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Correct.
So what my proposal is, we talk about projects, and we'll have to figure out how we're going to fund some of them, some of the larger projects, if we're going to proceed with them, because it does involve for water and sewer, and bonding and so forth. As far as roads, excuse me, you'll see the apparent estimate of revenue we're going to have fully at the beginning of the fiscal year. April 1 is $380,000. Now, we won't spend all that. You see some of the normal expenditures we have. Dust control, that's up to it could run as high as $65,000. Wayne County winter maintenance, we reimburse Wayne County up to $40,000 a year. Roadside mowing is $25,000. We supplement the roadside mowing. And that if we used all the funds, we'd have $250,000 to spend. Actually, that does not. This amount of money does not include the anticipated revenue that we would get in the next fiscal year, which would be another $200,000. So, assuming we were going to spend this amount of money, the $250,000, I think, if I recall, our project on East River at Stout and an Island, when we took bids on it, I think it was about $100,000 for the asphalt work. And I mentioned that because I've given you a memo. We never did get a meeting together with Wayne County. If you recall, we adopted that resolution. And when we adopted the resolution in October, we asked that they respond by December 1st. I finally got to speak to the new DPS director, Ron Agasinski. He's the new Wayne County engineer. Ron had no intention of getting back with us. I had to remind him that we even sent the resolution. That wasn't good news. Bob Conrad, who's director of road maintenance, my opinion is he didn't have any intention of getting back with us. He saw it, and he thought someone else was going to get back with us. And basically, he said the summary of what I talked about here on East River is he's willing to work with us, but he won't commit any money until he sees how much money he's going to have as winter ends. His whole storyline was, I've only got so much money, and we'll see how we come out of the winter, how much we spend on winter maintenance, snow and ice removal, how many storms we have, how many roads fall apart throughout the county, and I'll do what I can to work with you. So that's basically what information this memo outlines. We were told, and the memo outlines this too, that as far as those projects, we have to go get a permit through the county permit division for what we want to do. So what I'd like to do is recommend tonight that the commission authorize staff to go through our engineering company, Raines Engineering, and file the permits for the work we were going to do on Stout and Island and get those projects out for permit and get that process started. I don't want to drop our correspondence here, though. Since I met with or talked about Conrad, I thought we should really put some pressure on him because if you look at the Church Road, there's a lot of standing water at Church right now. Whatever drainage work they did, it didn't solve any problems. There's standing water at Stout and Island and East River. So I'd like to keep going with them, even though they won't have any answers right now, and keep putting the pressure on it. We want to move forward with improvements. We've got a permit application in, and here's what we want to do, and here's what we'd like you to do. As I've driven the project time and again, between Stout and Island, there's not much distance, not over 1/8 of a mile. And if we do the intersection improvements, there'd be about 600-800 feet in between that would be left untouched. So it'd be nice if that could be resurfaced too, and I think we ought to push them for that. We ought to push them to rebuild that intersection at Church. So I think it's a topic we can discuss, but if we want to get it done this next summer, we got to keep the pressure on. So I'm opening it up for any other thoughts. Those are my thoughts.
Mr. Chair, these are things that we've been talking about all year, and actually maybe even started the prior year, so I don't think we should, I think we should go forward with them. We don't want them to drop the ball on them or get behind on them. If that, certainly going for the permit would keep the thing going. I did have a question for you on the in these projects, going for if we're going to do all the work on the chip seal resurfacing. Yeah, are you going to talk about that? Okay, I'll hold off on my question then about that.
Well, on the chip seal, my thought was they say they're open to chip sealing. They said Conrad said he doesn't have any specs. Mm-hmm. We were told by Ken Cusell that he thought the county did have specs. I know Monroe County has specs, that they use it all the time. And Ted, I know you've seen some chip seal applications. Apparently there's even some improvements in the chip seal that Ohio's using. I don't know what it is. So they said they would use, that is, Wayne County said they'd follow the PennDOT specifications for it. And they indicated they'd be interested in seeing how it works as well. The one experience they did it on, they used it on some high-volume road that had traffic 10, 20 times the volume of anything we have. It didn't hold up, but they were talking instead of 3,000 to 4,000 vehicles a day, 50,000 vehicles a day. Well, of course, it's a big difference. Monroe County, I understand, has had some successful chip sealing. What I would like to suggest is that the Roads Committee, and in this case it could even be more than just the Roads Committee, you, Jim, or Ted, or myself could join them, that maybe this winter we could try to meet with Monroe County through Barry, setting up some meetings, talking about their successes or failures, maybe getting their specs, maybe inviting them to come here and look at our road with the subcommittee. I think we ought to research it.
I can get in contact with someone from Monroe County. The road I live on is chip seal, and it's a road that's not heavily traveled, but the speed limit's 45 miles an hour, so and it holds up very well. It's just an asphalt road, and they chip seal it probably, I don't want to say they do it once a year, but I'll bet you they do it every couple years, and they can do 2 miles of it in a day. That's how quick it goes down, and you can drive on it right afterwards. It's a little dusty at first because they're putting a chip over the top of tar, basically, oil. Once it sets up, it's fine. Looks like asphalt road.
I take it the advantage in that is that it's far less expensive.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Mm-hmm. We don't know yet, but if you go in and mill off and re-asphalt a mile of road, like Bellevue, for 1 mile it's about $400,000. We're led to believe this could cost as less as $50,000 or something of that sort.
I have a question for Barry. On these intersections, Island Stout, and I don't think we did anything on Church Road, that intersection. How far have we taken that to the township board?
The Church Road intersection?
Well, Stout, particularly, Church, I don't think we did anything because we thought that Wayne County was going to do it.
Right.
But if we're going to go out, if we're going to proceed with engineering and permits, then by your next meeting, the next meeting that we meet, we need to have some kind of an action for the township board to authorize the funding to move forward with the engineering and even bids if we're going to go that far.
Okay, well, actually, the engineering and the bidding, although we probably would have to rebid it, it was bid last spring.
Okay, so it did come in front of the township board?
No. Well, it did, no.
No, we gave them a list of projects we wanted to do, and they authorized us, those were the 2 asphalt projects that we didn't proceed with. we awarded that contract for concrete repair.
My question is, did those projects come in front of the board by an action item?
Yes.
The action item that went to the township board was to grant approval for the concrete replacement, the concrete patching replacement. We never moved forward with the asphalt one because we put it on hold because we thought the county
But
was going to help
we
us.
got approval from the township board to bid the projects. We
Yeah.
didn't award it because we were hoping the county would.
That was my question.
Yeah.
We did get the authorization to do that, because if that's the case, then all we have to do is rebid it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we bid it and get board approval to move forward with it
After the rebid?
after the rebid.
Right, okay.
But, now, at this point, we got to get our permits. And, one of our hopes too, Ted, if you recall, was maybe if the county's going to do the road work and they're going to do it themselves with their crew, maybe they would do our asphalt work too, like they did at some of the other intersections years ago.
Well, we could sure have them bid on it.
That'd be interesting. Well, we could have bids in hand and see
Sure.
what their prices come in at. All right, so as far as roads are concerned, any other discussion you want to have on roads? So in April, early April, we'll drive all the roads and drains, and we'll come up with how we're going to spend our money.
I guess I'm a little bit confused over our relationship with the county, and so we're trying to get the county to move forward with this. What happens if they don't? Are we still going to be doing it on our own, or what?
Well, last year we delayed
Okay.
instead of moving forward. The problem is we're going to go down to East River. We're not going to do East River. I think that the decision we've talked about in the past, this is a relevant discussion, is we're going to try to, remember we drove around and I explained that there's so-called neighborhood roads versus
Right.
the major collector roads. And we may have to do some work on collector roads eventually, but we were trying not to, because that should be their burden. The county's saying to us they're not going to spend any money except to patch holes on local roads, neighborhood roads. So we're going to do the section of Island and Stout that runs from the radius return where the curbs would normally go in, and then up each of those streets on the residential portion. But on the main run of East River, we were going to ask the county to do that.
Okay.
Now, we could always change that policy, our priorities, but is everybody understanding what I'm saying there? Ted, did I describe that accurately?
Yeah. Basically, what he just told you was, Wayne County is crying poor, they have no money. They're not assisting us with anything, so any projects that we move forward with will probably, at least for the next foreseeable future, for the next 12 months anyway, I don't see Wayne County improving. It's going to be very doubtful that we get any assistance from them. So if we don't take the bull by the horns and move forward, it just won't get done. Because basically, we don't fit the criteria with high traffic volumes, and, they're comparing us to Telegraph and Eureka or something like that. I mean, we're going to be so far down that list, we'll never get back up it. But we have to stay on them about it and see if we can get some cooperation. They have been doing what they can do, or at least they say they have. It's not a good position to be in, because we're using taxpayer money to do roads that belong to Wayne County, which we're paying taxes to have done.
Right.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do we need for, should we get a motion to request that the engineers file the two projects, and you can look them over?
Yes.
The plans for Stout and Island that we originally bid, now we have to go seek permits for them. We got to get that started.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
All right, so we've had a motion to ask our staff, our DPS director, to approach Raines Engineering to go forward with the permit applications for the improvements we delayed last year in 2012 for Stout and Island from East River back approximately 200 feet in each in a westerly direction. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So we've got something going there. And then on the chip seal, I just as soon ask the committee, we'll start to feed you some information, maybe after the holidays, we can start looking at how we can learn more about the chip seal. Barry will be on a chip seal mission.
Okay.
Anything else on roads anybody wants to talk about for tonight?
Probably one thing I'd like to say is that on the chip seal up in Roscommon County about 3 years ago, they chip sealed US 23 for quite a long distance. And I was amazed at that because I usually come home 75 from Grayling, and we came home 23, and it was all chip sealed. I was amazed at how much they chip sealed on that road. And I don't know if MDOT did it or Roscommon County.
Wow. On US 23?
US 23.
It held up.
Oh yeah, it's still there.
Okay. Be interesting. Next, page 33, we have a rough draft of a capital program for water. You'll notice that listed for 2013, we show a water main on East River from Ferry to Horse Mill. That's a 12-inch main. That's $1.5 million. One on Byromar between West River and Thoroughfare. That's $1.5 million. That's to replace the water lines there. We've talked about these over the years. And as far as sewer, Barry's proposing that we re-budget. We budgeted this year $500,000 to do mostly sewer investigation work, to try to determine where our sources of stormwater are getting into the sanitary system when we have a storm. And I think I explained that to you. So these haven't changed over the years. They're still there. I know that, Ted, you have some concerns about the funding, some of the funding issues facing the township. These are, particularly the water projects, are major. And the only other thing I would raise is that after we talked about these two water projects for a long time, Barry, you've been proposing to rebuild a whole section of 4 miles of water main on Meridian, saying that this would be a better way to solve some of your pressure problems and whatnot, reliability problems. But that project's $4.5 million, just that one. So, and the water report that I think we gave copies of this to Ron and Dave, but it does speak to the water main on East River and Byromar. It doesn't really speak other than to indicate that the water main on Meridian should be replaced, but doesn't give it the same. This report doesn't give it the same priority. So I ask you to be prepared to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, and I can briefly just, this draft that you have in front of you right now on the capital improvements is just basically a carryover from previous year. And you're right, I had been talking to the commission recently about Meridian Road becoming a priority over East River Road. And the thought along those lines are, and still is, we're having more breaks now on Meridian than we are on East River. And as I mentioned earlier, when we have a break on East River Road, the water basically runs in the river. It's a small main, it's an old main, it's only a 6-inch, and it does need to be updated. Meridian, on the other hand, depending on where we have a break, we have to be real careful. We do flood yards, because depending on the location of the main and the location of the break, there are areas around there when something breaks, we flood people's yards up around their homes. And in some instances, it could become a liability issue for us, as well as the disruption in the traffic along Meridian Road. So it is an area, and we talked about it before, and we'll talk about it some more, but that's an area that I'd like to have the commission take a look at, and it may end up being a priority over East River Road.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a couple of comments? This is a very tough process with budgeting capital improvements because of the pressure that the DEQ is putting on us for our sewer system. We know that at some point in time there's going to be a bullet. We don't know how big that bullet's going to be. We're currently bonded out on a $30 million project that became a $50 million project. Part of it was settled through litigation, as you know. I think that we currently have access to $3 million in bond money that we have not bonded out, that was approved by the Township Board last year. We approved $6 million in bonding. We bonded out $3 million of that, but basically that was to pay back what had been spent out of the DPS funds for the sewer project that was completed. Now, we should know, if we have any luck this year, in our water study, we should have some kind of a handle on what kind of budgeted dollars we're going to be looking at in the future, which would give us a better handle on what we can do in capital improvements, because we really have our hands tied on our ability to do capital improvements, which we need desperately. I mean, we need Meridian needs to be done, East River needs to be done, Bymore needs to be done. But you can't do it without money. And our ability to budget and fund right now is hanging out there with the DEQ sitting on our heads. So I think this will come much clearer, hopefully by July or August of this coming year, when we complete our water inflow study, so that we know basically how much we're going to have to spend on capital improvements to address their issues at the sewer plant. So until that time, I just don't know that the funds are there. If we're going to do Meridian, we need $4.5 million. If the DEQ mandates that we're going to be saddled with another $25 million bond issue to do what they say we need to do, we just don't have the ability to print funds, and we don't have the ability to put this community in any further debt. So I think this will be much clearer. I think, Bill, you've done what you need to do here. These are the projects that we've looked at. I believe that the sewer main repair, the $500,000, are the funds that we've set aside annually.
That's correct.
We spent, probably 200 of that?
Probably.
Maybe not that much.
Not quite that much this year.
60,000 of that. Mm-hmm. I would suggest that you consider in the next budget, all of you guys, taking what's left in that funds committed to last year and roll it over on top of this $500,000, so that if we see a smoking gun out there, we'll have the funds to fix it, budgeted funds to fix it. Mm-hmm. We're not going to have enough to fix all the problems, but if we can get the DEQ off our backs for $1 million, it would be nice to have the funds available without having to bond. Then we can go back into our capital improvement project. Until that time, I just don't know how we're going to get there. And I know John went through this when he was the treasurer, all the upgrades that we had to do, and it becomes a real issue. We're sitting on $64 million worth of debt right now at the township, with 50 of that being the sewer project, and it's a tremendous burden on the township. Eventually will affect our ability to bond if we're not very careful going forward.
And there's more millages than there used to be.
Right.
Other than bonding.
Right.
So that at some point starts to upset the balance of economic nature out here. We can't grow. I had a wonderful lunch with a good friend of mine. This guy's a very sharp, professional guy. And we looked at Grosse Ile. He's lived out here probably 40 years. And we talked about the dinosaur concept. And Grosse Ile is kind of like a dinosaur because we can't grow. We're surrounded by water. We have a residential tax base. We don't have the benefits that Brownstown does, or West Road in Trenton, or Allen Road, or various Eureka Road, various different places. Those communities have grown. We've all seen it in the last 10 or 15 years. You watch the development on Eureka Road with the restaurants, where they have brought new businesses right on the road at the edges, where the plazas used to be all parking lots. So now you've got Panera Breads and places like that that are good growth. They're good businesses. and they provide value to a community. We can't do that here. So our hands are tied to some extent. We have a lot of open space. There's going to be no growth there. So we are kind of like an economic dinosaur. And that's why at some point, too much bonding, too much millage really would upset the economic balance. And that's the other thing you have to concern yourself with. If wishes were horses, everyone would ride, and we'd have a brand-new water and sewer system out here and different things. And we just can't do it all at one time, and never did. So there have been some improvements over the years, and to the extent we can do new improvements without bonding, which is a key, which then doesn't place additional burden on the tax rolls, it's very beneficial to the community. Everyone would like new things now. You can't always do it that way. I think the city of Detroit is learning that because they wanted to do it with cash flow now, and I think they're in more trouble than even we realize right now, which would affect our bonding. Sure. If something happens in the city, that's going to affect our bonding. Sure. So this balancing thing, there's no silver bullet, there's no perfect answer. The awareness factor is very important in commissions like this one.
Thanks, John.
Okay, well, thanks, John. Thanks, Ted. That's good. So I guess basically we can talk about these things, and we already got a list of them, so that's good.
Well, Barry and I will be
we
going.
don't have any answers for 6, 7, 8 months.
Barry and I and Ann will be going over that budget, but I think it's important that we've already got the cost of that 500,000 in our water rates and our sewer rates, and I just don't think we need to let that slip, because I see within the next 12 months, I see a number. I don't know what that number is going to be, but within the next 12 months we'll see a number. Then it's going to be, how do we address that number? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if we've got some adequate funding set aside for that, we might be able to do a lot with a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if we can't, then we're going to have to start. I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did, but I don't.
I think I briefly explained that to you, gentlemen. Yes. Okay, well, that's good. Thanks, Ted, for that. Next, page 34 includes drainage projects. And Barry, that bottom one that's listed for $60,000, is that really South Point or Wilbur? Or
Yeah, that is. I left it in there because...
What about Park Lane School?
That's not in here. No.
I assumed that the Wilbur South Point would be spent out of this year's budget, at least.
If it moves forward, it will be, but I put it in there just in case it wasn't. But we will add the Park Lane Elementary School to the list.
You do have that budgeted for this year, right?
Well, yes. That's
so that could be a rollover.
Yes, right. That's in the current budget.
What are the asterisks for?
I think that's because all these showed up in this year.
Yeah, the budgeted, the line at the top that says budgeted amounts has an asterisk by it, and all of these items below that are budgeted in this year's budget.
In this year's budget?
Yes, current budget. Mm-hmm.
And there's a good chance that they won't be spent.
Yes.
Well, what is the first item?
The storm system and PDS.
What is that?
That's an MS4 permit that we have to deal with the MDEQ on yearly, the stormwater issue. And that's kind of ongoing. It's permitted, it's reviewed. We have to file reports every year. That was one of my...
This is a number that's out there, we just don't know what it's going to be.
We plugged this number in.
Okay.
No, that's not a concrete number. That's just a plug-in. We haven't spent near that this year. I mean, it's just, we keep it in there as a reserve in case we do, but now a year ago, we passed our inspection, so we were given a clean bill of health when it comes to the NPDS MS4 permit. So they won't be bothering us for another 3 or 4 years. But the DEQ has a tendency to bring new things up as time goes on, and we just need to cover it, that's
Maybe you
all.
want to downsize that to
We've-
50,000.
All of these numbers will be reviewed for the next year's budget. This is what's there currently.
I'd like you to look at downsizing that.
Yeah.
And just to comment on that, for Dave, and maybe we haven't discussed this with you either, Phil, you haven't run, but this is one of those mandated programs that nobody's supposed to mandate programs under Headley. This is a mandated program that's about 15 years old or 20 years old. The state now has 2 different tiers of permits for communities based on your size. And they actually come out and inspect to see what you're doing about managing your stormwater so that stormwater doesn't pollute the streams or, I mean, I'm not going to comment on it, but it's just another mandated program, and everybody's got to do it now. And
Are you-
Dave's talking about somebody actually comes from Lansing, they look at what we're doing, and they can give you a whole list of things you got to do.
Yeah, a year ago, or approximately a year ago, we had our inspection, and she was here for 3 days.
Wow.
Going over Grosse Hill. And we had a few minor items that we had to take care of, but nothing significant. We took care of those, addressed those items, and got, what's that? And we were okay. But
It was a great place to visit. You just
didn't want to leave.
The airport oil separator is something you budget every year.
We do, yes.
The Grosse Hill drain maintenance is just if we have a drain project that we didn't anticipate, whether a cave-in on a ditch or a drain someplace, we have money to spend. The relocation for road projects is just in case we run into something.
Right.
And that's possible. We might do that at Highland or Stout. The bike path drainage is an issue, Phil, that we talked about in front of the Presbyterian Church. You want to comment on that?
Yes. In fact, as part of the bike path bid that we just received bids on a month or so ago, included in that bid was a separate cost to go and take care of some drainage problems that are at the intersection of Park Lane and Horse Mill. For years, it's been a problem. We incorporated it in with the bike path bids, but we put it in the bid in such a way that it can be separated from the bike path bid price and done as a separate project. And right now, it looks like if we want to move forward on that this coming season in the summer, it will have to go on its own. I don't know what's going to happen to the bike path right now, but there are funds there for us to improve that intersection drainage-wise. And that's a project that needs to be done, in my opinion.
Okay. Any further questions on any of the drainage? You're going to add Park Lane School back in your list.
We're going to put Park Lane School back in there. And one other item that's on this budget, just that I can give a brief rundown on for the new members. The item that says the drainage grant program, there's $100,000 put in the budget every year that allows residents to come to us that have drainage issues on their property and submit to us their project for improvement, and it's sent to our engineers for their review. If it meets the approval and the criteria for Grosse Hill Township, we will split the cost with them, and that some of that money comes from that drainage grant program. And I think the township will match their funds up to $5,000 of Grosse Hill money. So if it's a $10,000 project, the township will pay $5,000. It's a kind of a cumulative thing. If there's 3 or 4 people that have one problem, and those 3 or 4 people get together and come with a plan, it increases the money that's available to them because there's 4 of them now instead of just 1. And that drainage grant program has been in effect probably, what, Ted, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, probably. It started with the last board.
Yes. Yeah,
It's not this board, but the
right.
2 boards ago.
Yeah, it's been around probably 7, 8 years, and it's very successful. We get a lot of people that come in and do apply for these grants, and it's solved a lot of their drainage issues over the years, so it's a good thing.
Any questions on drains? And we're going to, when we drive in April, we'll drive and look at drains too. Next is our pages 35 and 36, wastewater plant. Barry? Joe?
Yeah, this is just, Joe put this together as budgeted items for our upcoming year, next year's budget. And you'll see that it's separated out. It's about a 5-year plan. We've taken care of most of the ones that are in the current budget. There's a couple of them in there that we want to roll over into next year. And then you can see the highlighted ones here are the ones that we took care of this year, or some of the ones we took care of. We haven't got to all of them, but we did most of them, didn't we, Joe? Yeah, I think we did pretty much most of them for the current year. And then you'll see 2013, those are the ones that we propose for next year. One of the ones I'm going to be bringing to the commission for discussion is we have 5 lift stations around the island that rely on electricity for pumping. And when we have power failures right now, we have to take portable generators over and set them up to run these pumps. We would like to replace those portable generators with stationary generators. So they come on automatically when the power goes out, and they run basically by themselves. We had 2 or 3 of them in this year's budget. 2. We had 2 in this year's budget, but my recommendation, rather than just bid 2, I think we should roll this over into next year and bid them all at the same time, so we can go with one generator manufacturer for the entire package, so we don't have a mismatch of equipment out there. I think we'll get a better price by bidding them together. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't do that project. We're going to discuss it for next year's budget. That's
Where is that in this list?
Is that on the second page? With the purple.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the $24,000 item?
There's about 12,000 apiece, is that what you're guesstimating?
What's that?
And these would be natural gas?
These were, actually, they said natural gas ones are cheaper.
Right.
And these are, I got this from talking with Clemens Bridgeway. And these numbers, those are budget numbers that they gave me.
Budget numbers included installation and hooking to the gas line? Or?
Joe, why don't you go up to the mic here? So Ted's question was, are they about 12,000 apiece?
Yes.
So I'm looking at the purple box next to that item, Barry.
Yeah, that was...
That's 60,000.
Yeah,
because the 24
Wouldn't be spent.
isn't spent.
and the 5 of them would be roughly the $60,000.
So it'd be, if we rolled the 24 over, we'd reduce that 60 by 24,000.
No. We would?
Yeah.
No, 5 times 12 is 60, so if we had 5 at 12,000 apiece, we still need the $60,000.
Right, but you're going to roll 24,000 over
Yes.
this year's budget.
We'll roll 24 over into the, yes. Mhm.
Okay. So looking at, what should we be looking at, the 2013 column?
Yes, pretty much.
The laboratory bench, cabinetry, and the lab? you're talking
Yes.
about? And then I see plant lighting upgrade, $75,000.
If you were to go down into our primary clarifier room, all the lights are falling apart.
The 75 are fitting
That's
back?
just
You guessed?
a guess based on when those lights were replaced. And
Explosion proof? Or should they be?
it could be, but not everything else is.
Right, right.
Well, Joe, I guess I would ask you to get some prices on it.
Okay.
Because when we come back in February, it'd be nice to have some prices,
Okay.
not just speculation.
You can get some bids on that.
I got some quotes.
And
That's what I'm talking
I see you got that garage in here still. We've delayed, Barry, that
Yes.
garage? Okay.
We still are in need of storage space over there at the treatment plant. And bear in mind, these numbers that we're looking at here right now for 2013, those are just proposed. I mean, they're estimates at this time.
I know. All right. But I think by February, we should be tied down what you really want to do. These are probably what you really want to do. But, I mean, we probably need to do a walkthrough or something.
Okay.
I know we've delayed the garage. I see you have a sludge grinder. Is that, let's see, the one that we have is wearing out, right? Do we only have one sludge
No,
grinder?
there are, the sludge grinder, actually, we don't have one. And that is to go in the sludge line before the lime blend tank, where we mix the lime stabilizers for application on farm fields. But right now, we get so many rags, because people flush all sorts of stuff they shouldn't down the toilet, that we constantly plug up the sludge pump out there, and the mixer blade gets coated in these things, and it starts rocking, and we've had to replace gearboxes on that mixer, and that's the big one. Because of that, it causes excessive wear, and it's extremely hard to get that stuff out of there. And
How can you introduce, how would you install a sludge grinder?
well, it'd be right in the line between,
It's in the pipe itself?
in the pipe itself, yes.
In a manhole or what?
No, in the garage, in the current garage at the plant, where the line mixing controls and the sludge line is, where it's accessible. Yeah, it'd be right in there.
All right, I will look at that.
Okay.
You might want to give a little history on this HVAC plant, or I will give it, whichever you prefer,
Yeah, go ahead.
for the new members.
I prefer you do it.
Some time ago, about 4 years ago, we had a engineering study done on replacement of the entire HVAC system on the sewage treatment plant, everything. All the heating and cooling units, the ventilation equipment, everything. The engineering numbers came back at somewhere around $350,000, $360,000. We went out for bids on the project, and it came in at $500,000, or a little more than $500,000. A lot of the equipment was still working, a lot of the equipment was still functioning, so the decision this commission made at that time was, as this equipment fails, if the repair cost approaches or exceeds 50% of a new piece of equipment, we would replace the equipment, which is kind of an industry standard throughout the automotive and everybody. As long as you can fix it, fix it. If it starts to approach 50%, it's probably time to quit throwing money at it and replace it. And we've done that. We've replaced some of the equipment. The boiler was in that project number of $500,000. So that 500,000 is just a number that kept rolling year after year after year. We've made several repairs. We've made several replacements, the boiler being one of them. So, as you can see, in 2013, we won't roll that 500,000 over. We're anticipating 250,000 would more than cover, and it's probably an excessive number, because we will attempt to keep this stuff running as long as we can, and at some point in time, we will have to replace it. That's how that $500,000 number got there. If we went in and just replaced everything, it was going to cost $500,000. We just didn't think it was feasible or necessary at the time. So that number will continually roll down as we replace equipment as it's needed. And this boiler is a good example. That was part of it. We nursed it until we just couldn't nurse it anymore. And this year we replaced it. And we've got an HVAC unit on the roof that's maybe marginal in the spring. We'll take a good look at it. If we think we can get another year out of it, we'll get another year out of it. But just trying to conserve the money without throwing money good money into a bad situation.
That's what I understand. So in other words, instead of having 500,000 in the budget for 2013, you're going to have 250. Is that
That's what he's showing, that's what Barry's showing there, and we don't plan on rolling that 500,000 over.
Okay.
So that 500,000, so we'll actually, I don't think we spent maybe 105,000 this year, if that much, maybe 100,000. So that 500,000 will roll back into the reducing of the operating costs of the DPS department for this year. We have traditionally, going back to my whole tenure, our budget was kind of a wish list. Yeah, we might need a dump truck, let's budget 50,000. We might need a pickup truck, let's budget 30,000. In the past 3 or 4 years, we've stopped that practice. And the practice we use now is if we know we're going to replace it that year, we'll do it. This is kind of a carryover from about 5 years ago. So, and it's the last time you'll see that number of that size. It'll get more realistic as we roll along. All of these numbers are factored into they're important because they're factored into the sewer rate. Pratt Moran delivers a sewer rate list for us, water and sewer rate list, with what we budgeted, and says this is what you have to charge for your water and sewer to meet your budgeted items. So it's important that we get these as close to accurate as possible so we can maintain, so it doesn't, we're not driving off the island to use the bathroom at Marathon because we can't afford to flush our toilet. We need to get that number down. So that's why we're doing it the way we're doing it now. Just a little history. I'll be your official historian.
No, that's good, and each year the sewer budget has to transfer to a capital reserve replacement fund in the wastewater budget. Is it 106,000?
I think it's about 105,000.
105.
That was a program that was started when Mr. Riley was involved in taking the plan over, actually before him, right?
So we have, and I don't know what the sum is now, but we have in the wastewater capital reserve for repairs and whatnot, well over $1 million, correct, Ted?
Yes.
That we can spend for these kind of things. It's not that money hasn't been accumulated. You know, the plant is 40 years old.
Yeah, all that.
And as Joe has said to us many times, when I've learned, Joe, when you have that high humidity operation at a wastewater plant, everything's continuously in a high humid state, and water all the time, things deteriorate. And when you go on your tour, you'll see that. I suggest you schedule a tour before it gets too darn cold. Anyway.
Basically, if those funds were set aside when we took the wastewater treatment plant over from Wayne County, in the event of a catastrophic event, and we needed funds, because we could have a catastrophic event at that sewer plant that could very, very easily exceed $1 million in cost. And without the access to quick funds, and that's basically what those funds are for. And then when we terminated the agreement, we paid off the Wayne County for the sewer plant. It was this commission's decision to continue setting that money aside so that we always had that capital reserve there in the event of a catastrophic failure, because nothing in that plan is cheap.
Joe?
That replacement fund was actually dictated by the grants from EPA when the plant was built in the 70s. But Wayne County never accounted for the funds until we took it over, and that was, so the money's been, that we had.
We didn't get the funds that they had already collected.
Right.
But we did start the fund at that point.
Which was 1986, right?
87.
87.
Yeah.
That's when we took the plant over?
Yes.
And how old's the plant?
1966, the original,
So it's 50-some years old.
almost 50,
Yeah. Wow.
almost 60.
it's
46.
66, yeah. That's 46 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Almost as old as the window.
That was cruel.
I meant to say the other thing. Where's that? Okay, any further discussion on the wastewater plant for tonight? This is a good primer. I think that, I want to see if Barry has anything to add on the capital budget items, but I think that, this year we deferred dealing with the water sewer rate increase. We did not. We got about a 10% increase from Detroit,
10.3.
and we absorbed it for now.
Yes.
We thought we could because we were on hold for some things. But I think come our March meeting, and then when they get into the more budget detail, we may have to, we're going to probably be addressing a water sewer rate increase on our billing.
You mentioned a 10% increase, that's on the water portion.
The wholesale water portion.
Okay, so it's not 10% of the entire water bill that we get?
No, that's correct, just on usage.
Okay.
What we pay Detroit for water.
I think that with my discussions with Barry and Ann, we're going to wait until we see what the water rate increases this year, and then we will go out for an increase. Right now, if we were to recoup the $100,000, we'd be looking at about a 3.5%, 3.6% increase, depending on what the water rates for the city of Detroit. I have some great history on that, too, if anybody wants to hear it. But the water rate increase in the city of Detroit is going to be for next year. We're anticipating 11%, I think. I'm hoping it's going to be less than that.
Even if they have 80% fewer employees?
Well,
Even if they have 80% fewer.
well, let me give you one of the big history items there. We heard their payroll for all personnel is 15% of their budget. Their debt is 58% of their budget. So if you think 300 or 400 employees is going to make a difference, it's not even going to scratch the surface. I mean, they're in an impossible situation, absolutely impossible. I think she's doing the right thing, the new director is doing the right thing to try to maintain the rates, but with $8 billion current debt and $10 billion in upgrade requirements, that's why we've put on the back burner but haven't totally walked away from our own water treatment plant, because if something doesn't happen to that system, this situation will get undoable at some point in time. And we don't want to be behind the 8 ball on that one if we're going to move. But unfortunately, Trenton dropped out of that program because of their contractual agreements, so now it's down to 2 communities. All of a sudden, it's economically not as feasible as it was. And so that's been put on the back burner, and a little more history. But with $8 billion worth of debt and $10 billion needed to upgrade, I said billion, by the way, with a B. I just don't know. I don't see any relief coming from the city of Detroit. Hopefully, short of bankruptcy, I just don't see how they're ever going to get out of it. And that's probably not going to happen. They're not going to, unless the state of Michigan steps up, which they could. I mean, it's a pretty viable portion of southeastern Detroit, or southeastern Michigan. And it's kind of the heartbeat, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I thought it was ironic. It's been in the news a little bit lately, but if you remember a year and a half ago, on the east side off Groesbeck, I think it was in Clinton Township, there was that major, was it a water break or sewer break?
There was
Water or sewer?
sewer
And
break.
it was a big trunk line sewer, 6-foot diameter sewer, whatever. But when I heard I know there's an investigation going on by the Oakland County Drain Commissioner, but there's some federal litigation going on right now, but to repair that sewer was a $30 million fix. I mean, I was stunned. I thought $3 million I could understand, maybe. 30? So I don't know. Anyway, I won't comment on that anymore. But
Was that the one Dankasini repaired?
I don't know. Well,
It might have been.
there were some other contractors involved.
3 Mile Road.
There were some other contractors involved in that.
Yeah, that was up in Sterling Heights?
I think it was Sterling Heights.
All right, so is there any further, this was a preliminary discussion, and Barry's going to come back at our February meeting with your budget. These items will probably be listed in a similar manner, but as Ted says, you know, we're advisory, so anything we do, we have to go back and recommend that this go through the board for final funding. The bigger projects are going to be delayed. Road improvements we'll do some this summer, hopefully some drain, wastewater plant. The bigger projects, we need to keep talking about. Anything else on that? Okay. Barry, action item.
Action item, if you recall, some time ago, the commission and the township board approved to go out for bids for security cameras at the wastewater treatment plant. And this is a project that's been needed for many years. Right now, there are no surveillance cameras at the plant. We have a situation over there where people can kind of come and go as they please. So it was the commission's decision to move forward, to go out for bids for security cameras at the treatment plant. And the motion reads motion to recommend to the township board to award bid to Mid-State Security, lowest bid, in the amount of $19,993 for the installation of IP-based network surveillance system using 6 IP cameras and network video recorder for the wastewater treatment plant. And down in the history part of it, you can read that portion of it. Not knowing a whole lot about security cameras and surveillance cameras, we kind of called upon the police department to review this for us, them being more well-versed in it than we were. They looked it over, didn't have a problem with it, had a few questions that we took care of. But basically, the sheet that we handed out tonight gives kind of a rundown of what the cameras can do. They actually can save all of the videotapes for a minimum of 30 days. They can go out further than 30 days. It'll store it. We can retrieve it. We can transfer it to DVD. We can have it broadcast at the police department if we want to. These cameras, we can pick them up on our computers here at Township Hall. So it's a pretty well-rounded package. In your packet, you'll see we have a coverage map in there. It's tinted in orange. It kind of gives you an idea where the cameras are going to be placed. And as you can tell, all of the road frontage is going to be under surveillance. There's going to be 6 exterior cameras and 2 interior. There's going to be 2 of them in your building, in the lab building, for indoor security purposes, but it pretty much covers everything on the outside. They're day-night cameras. They can pick up just about anything that moves out there. So I think it's a pretty good system, and it seems like you can see we got 2 bids. Both bids were close to each other. They were basically a couple $1,000s apart. Talked to Mid-States several times, and they seem to be the best equipped to move forward with the job. So, any questions from the Commission?
Questions?
Well, storage. Bill, what's the purpose of storing data more than a brief period of time?
Well, there really isn't. They have to set up a timeline for storage, 30 days. You can set it, I think, anywhere you want. 30 days. If you don't need that videotape in the first 30 days or 30 days after each day, you're not going to need it.
But I'm not going there. I'm saying if there's no purpose to store more than 1 week, why store it? Whether the cameras will handle the storage or not is irrelevant to a purpose of record keeping. And the basic accounting principle is you only keep data that you can use or reasonably use. And the guy that writes down the mileage for each time he fills up his car, and he keeps a log in his glove compartment, for 10 years driving that same car, he's not doing himself any good after the first probably 2 weeks, 2 fill-ups, unless there's a drastic change. That's the same concept. Storage is a cost factor because it is, just to keep track of it. So that's the idea. I mean, who's going to, if it's got 20 or 30 days storage, do you need that much time? If somebody comes in and steals your sewerage, then you'll know it in a couple of days, and you'll have them on film, but otherwise, you don't need to store it very long, it seems. But you're the operator over there, and not me, so is there a better reason to store longer? You don't know either.
This is not my area of expertise, and that's what they came up with. I think I do believe it's video quality determines your level of storage.
Oh, right, for time frames, I'm talking about usage, though.
Oh, no, we probably would,
A week?
well, even 30 days could sometimes work out if all of a sudden a tool comes up missing, and that happens. and we have contractors in there all the time. But we won't know, we don't inventory, the bearing puller every day.
Let's suppose that your torque wrench is missing, and they cost, special torque wrench, it's $500. And so you got 30 days worth of movies to review, and I guess it's 24-hour stuff, so 30 days, 24 hours, figure out what the hours are, it's almost 750 hours, so you put $1 million down to watch the movies for 750 hours, looking for a torque wrench. You go buy a new one, and it's expendable product.
Of course, the better, I think John raised on this, probably, the issue is we're looking at a possible trespass or break-in, right?
Yes.
And then
see, those will be spotted rather quickly, a break-in in the building.
And then you could go back and look at the tape.
And then you go back and look at the tape. The only thing, when you're asking 30 days, I don't know where that number came from. I don't know.
The machinery will handle 30 days, that's where the number came from. That's the concept of the tail wagging the dog. Because if you don't know something happened, it's kind of a catch-22, but it's a Yossarian catch-22 where we're not crazy because we know we're crazy. So we're not putting a guy on a box to watch a week's worth of tape if we don't know something's missing, if we don't have any otherwise reason to look at it, because that's a cost factor. So just to have that dead storage there is ridiculous. It's like filling a gas tank in a car and parking it someplace and never using it.
Okay.
If you just keep running it over and over again, it's not any good at all.
As far as the 30 days, from a cost factor, I don't think it actually cost us anything, only if we need to go back and review it. And
that's the other part of it. See, if we're going to start doing stuff like that, if you're going to put 30 days up, and that scanning system is supposed to put you on notice, what we're looking at is if there's a break-in, or if there's some major infiltration into the perimeter area, the inside area. I think that's what you're looking for. And that would be readily noticed to some extent, I would think, within a week or less. If you and then somebody's got to make some decision at the end of the week, are we going to keep this film or we're not, and it's digitized or whatever. And then you say, no, we're not, bing, you scratch it, you start again. Every Monday you scratch it and start again, because if you just start building this system that has a lot of review process to it, eventually you're going to have to look at it. And the bigger the library, the less beneficial it is. That's my point. On the front end, you kind of you cut your damages quickly if you're going to survey and keep data. You keep it for a week and you get rid of it. It says no break-ins at the end of the week, and we get rid of it. Because if you keep on keeping stuff like that, all of a sudden, because that machine has 30-day capability, it's running us. That's the only reason why we're keeping it for 30 days. And we shouldn't be. We should have management decisions up front. That's just great if that thing holds all kinds of data. But if we really don't need it, for purposes of operating a sewer treatment plant, then we should store a limited amount and then delete it and start again. And there's going to be a little cost there because somebody's going to have to make that decision. Now, practically, everybody can forget about it and just let it recycle every 30 days. Then the system's almost becoming worthless because nobody's utilizing the product ever for quality control or any other purpose. I mean, so that thing is going to be time demanding and manpower demanding to some extent. And we're not looking to add any additional burdens to you. But from a break-in standpoint, I can see where that's great. Or if you have some contractors that are coming in there and doing a job for, let's say, 10 days, because now we have to fluctuate to be a little more. We got to look at it for 10 days. We want to watch these guys for 10 days, make sure they don't drive off with our pickup truck or something, which is a ridiculous example.
Right.
But, okay, that makes sense to expand a little bit, but you just don't want to keep this stuff just for the heck of it, because it becomes actually a worthless product. If you're never reviewing it, then your visual inspection of a break-in is what you're relying on anyways, and the cameras are back up to your visual inspection, and if so, then just keep the time frame narrower, that's all. And you can decide that, or we can.
Our primary focus is security right now.
Right.
So if you're, I don't know exactly what you're saying, John.
Well, I got a question. What do they store this on? Is it on a tape, on a CD?
I think it's on, I think
No,
it's
it's probably flash drive.
Yeah, it's on a flash drive. Yeah, and it probably works, it'll store 30 days or more, whatever you want to set it at, and then after it stores 30 days, it'll probably kick the 30th day out when it adds a new one on the front. And I don't think there's much maintenance to it.
Dial it down.
I mean, yeah, memory is so cheap that,
And I would assume also it's calibrated so that if you had a break-in or an entry someplace you thought, you could go back and look
Oh, yeah.
24 hours,
Oh, yeah.
24 hours, past 48 hours or something.
Yeah, and like I say, they're night vision cameras, for night view. I mean, these cameras do a heck of a job
So what I'm
today.
saying, they're calibrated, so you
Yes.
can look at a certain day. Okay.
Is there alarm on this? Or do you have alarm on the plant?
no,
Is there going to be an alarm with this?
not at this time.
You're talking about a burglar alarm, right?
Right, I mean, if somebody pries the gate open, okay, we got a picture of the guy, and he's walking off with a generator or a pump. Okay, we see this person, there goes the pump out the gate. Cops ride by 4 hours later, says, oh, the gate's open. Right.
Well, I think that, to me, the security gate isn't just somebody stealing as much as it is we don't want anybody to break in and tamper with the operation. And, I mean, the stealing is a component of that, but there's a lot of hazards there. There's a lot of things people could do.
That was
They were
huge.
intending to be, I mean, I wouldn't spend the money if it was just, we could set up a burglar alarm, but they can always hop the fence, that's the problem.
And crawl under the gate, they can be.
I've got two questions about the whole situation. Looking at the map of how these cameras are going to view things, they're not going to tell you anything about what's going on inside. You're not going to know. I mean, if you see two contractors come in and two contractors leave, you have no idea whether those two or any other person that's been in and out of there for the last 30 days is the one with the torque wrench. Because there's nothing inside. You're not seeing anything there.
But there's not, it's not like we have contractors in there. I mean, well, the past month we had somebody in there, but we usually don't.
Who is going in and who is going out. The other thing we're not seeing with this is, with no alarms, there is no notification of a break-in. Everything's going to be done after the fact. You'll have to discover a break-in and then say, well, let's go see who did it, let's look at the tapes. Is that how I understand this? If there's no, like Les said, nothing that shows, I mean, you mentioned tampering, so we don't want somebody to get in there and tamper with something. Well, we're not going to know anybody got in there and tampered with anything until after they've tampered with it, because nobody's looking at it.
That's a good point.
So, but the other thing is concerning what John said about the 30 days. I don't have a real problem with that, because over and over again, we're finding out that other agencies in that sometimes like to look at what went on there. There might have been a traffic accident in that area or something like that that they might want to review, and those tapes could be utilized for that. So keeping the tapes at no cost doesn't really disturb me.
I'm wondering if the cameras are pointed in the wrong direction. They're pointed
that's true.
at the road in Port Elizabeth Park, so we can figure out how many boats are launched every day. But should they be on post on the other side of the road looking back at the plant? Looking at the whole thing?
Then you run into some issues of, running conduits under the road. I think there's all that kind of stuff, because this is utilizing...
Probably more expensive that way, but you could also put them on this side of the road, just like the corners of Stylock 17. They had a view. They always wanted to look to the inside to see what's going on in there. You could probably have cameras mounted on our side of the road, but you're facing the plant.
But then you're insulting.
They came out and said the cameras have limited range, and that's why, we could put 27 cameras in there, and we'd have the whole, because that was the original thing when we walked around. Well, yeah, it'd be nice to see, down here behind this building, and the guy started saying, well, how much do you want to spend?
Yeah. If we want to put surveillance cameras to have surveillance in the whole plant, we're looking at a lot of money.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is we're really looking for something to tell us what happened yesterday. There's not going to be any active surveillance of these cameras. Nobody's going to be monitoring like they do other surveillance cameras where somebody's sitting there scanning the screen and watching what's happening on a real-time basis. This is all going to be after the fact.
But we can set it up if we want to pay the money that the police department can monitor it.
Yeah.
If we want to pay some additional money, lots of additional money.
You have to have a screen they're going to look at.
And they're going to want to have money for looking at...
I'm just saying that there's a lot of possibilities that we can do with it. It just depends on how much money you want to invest in the system. We can have it set up so a mouse can't walk through there if you want to, we can.
Somebody would have to be watching it.
Yeah, and we can set it up to do that. In fact, this equipment has the capability of, we can probably monitor it from Township Hall here if we want to. We can get into the system and we can actually sit at my desk and probably see what's going on over
do
there.
that if they're there when you're here.
Well, that's what you could do it off hours.
No, I was just going to say, the whole point of the system and what we've been talking about and trying to even get this over the year or so that we've been working on is to do just what it's going to do.
Right.
The discussion wasn't with the thought that there'd be an alarm or that there'd be some kind of notification to anybody. This is what we went after, and that's what this project is for. If we want to expand it, obviously it's going to cost us money. And we can have those types of things that have been talked about, the alarm or whatever. But this is what we wanted, and this is what the system is that we're looking at. And yeah, it's not a catch-all of everything. It is what it is. We don't have any surveillance right now. We have anybody can pretty much go in there and we wouldn't know.
Right.
I mean, we would know, but we would never know who.
Right.
This is going to give us, at least if somebody tries to get in, that we have this.
In one of the items that goes along with this that came before the commission yet, we're working on right now, along with this setup, we're going to have right now we do not have a powered gate at the plant. Joe locks it and unlocks it when he leaves in the morning and comes back at night. We're going to have a powered gate installed. This camera one of these cameras, the one on the end of the building, will cover that entranceway. And that gate is going to be closed at all times. Somebody can drive up to that gate, and Joe will be able to monitor them from inside the building to see who they are and whether he wants to let them in or not. And that's important, because that was one of the issues that the commission had discussed 2 or 3, 4 years ago when we first started talking about this. There were times when Joe would look over his shoulder and be somebody standing there that actually just drove into the plant, and there he is, you know. Most of them are probably pretty friendly people, but
Most of them are friendly.
But if you ran into one that wasn't, it could pose a problem. So along with this, down the line, there's going to be a proposal coming before the commission that for authorization to put in the powered gate, that they only have access in and out if Joe lets them in and out. So that's also a part of it.
Could I just add something? Reading over this proposal, if we do not feel that the coverage is adequate, these systems are obviously expandable with the equipment we're buying. On the mid-size, it shows cameras 1 through 4, all the way up to cameras 63 through 64. The cost of the cameras are about $500 for one style and $1,100 for another style. I'm sure the system could be expanded, and I don't know of a security camera system that if you wanted to focus one camera on one area that triggered an alarm, I'm sure we can do that
I think that could
with this program. I mean, it would cost a few $100s to expand it, but I'm guessing this particular system will handle up to 50 or 60 cameras if you want to do that. And if it's 1 or 2 that we need for coverage, then let's do it. Not now. I mean, once we get it in and get it operating, we can see what we want. But I would doubt very much that you couldn't alarm at least one of these cameras to give an audible signal or trigger a signal to somebody.
All right, well, I know where the one door is to the left. Would it be, if we're concerned about security, we could also, in addition to what we've got programmed here with the cameras, get a price for, not from an alarm company, to just put on 1 or 2 of the key doors that you're concerned about, people having access to the lab area, or whatever it might be, the chemical area. See what kind of price you get that would be monitored, and alarm could go off at the police station.
And what I'm looking at is...
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
If a bad person from wherever, from the move, wanted to infiltrate this area, wouldn't they get in a boat and come in the canal first and come in from a different direction?
They could, although that would be a little tough to jump that fence.
That's why I suggested this system is expandable. I mean,
I'm wondering
if you want to cover that area.
Where the bay door situation may be more important than West River Road from a camera standpoint. No matter where the infiltration comes from, you have the ingress points in the building camera, then you've got it. And you're not talking about every time you had a camera, you had recording data. So if you minimize the recording data, is the way to go the other way on these cameras, where you have less, but you're focused in the infiltration areas that are most likely to be invaded, for want of a better word, if we're really worried about that.
Jen, am I missing something? You brought the police department in for their, to ask them their advice on this whole thing, correct?
Yeah.
And we also have the camera people, who this is their business, to set this up. And this is what they determined with our budget that we had, that this is the best system to be set up. And now we're going to go back and say, no, we want you to change the cameras, and we think you should be viewing something different.
Well, let's just kind of look at it for a minute. But sometimes the simplest situation is what you really want to be looking at. So if we're worried about somebody coming onto the premises, a trespasser, and it could be not a large bad person, could be a little bad person, like a couple of kids, they're coming from the canal, probably, if they're deliberate, they're coming from the canal. So a lot of this stuff that's done by camera companies, they're selling cameras. And the police department isn't worried about the infiltration all the way around the plant, just the road surface. So I'm not sure if Les's idea about some alarms, it might be better than the cameras, I don't know. Or if there is going to be a camera alarm, then some of it ought to be, of these 8, ought to be focused right at the areas, like Bill said, where here's a bay door area, which seems to be an important area to look at for ingress. I think it's a common sense answer, not, you don't want to bring out the SWAT team to figure out where we can put some cameras, because I don't really think that's a big problem here. The security, I don't think it's a big problem here.
Well, without redesigning it, let me ask a question, then, a couple of John's comments. You brought 2 companies out, you told them what you wanted to do, and they looked at the site, and they came up with some suggestions?
Yes, they, right. I mean,
We either want to fly with that for now as a starter, the idea we can always
Bill's got a point. I
expand
mean,
it.
you bring some experts in to say, where do you watch? But
The other thing is
What do you watch?
maybe we want to consider, like Phil said, is an alarm or 2 someplace, whether it's associated with this or independent, so that if there is, because even if there's a break-in of some sort, I mean, the last thing we want our kids to break in and have fun drowning in the clarifying tanks or something of that sort.
Mr. Chair, could I-
issue?
Yeah,
Right, so that would be
it
something
is.
that...
So if we're worried about security, maybe what you could do is get a proposal from...
can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
How old's the plant?
45 years old.
I'm hearing 2 questions. One, can we add cameras to this existing system? 1 or 2, 3, without going more than the cost of cabling and cameras. The cameras are $516 and $1,179, whichever one we get. Question number 1. Question number 2 is, can we add alarm to any or all of these cameras as we see fit? I would suggest that maybe we table this until the next meeting, ask those 2 questions, and come back. I mean, 49 years and 2 weeks.
One question I have, not being here when this was initially brought forward, would be, okay, a problem was apparent and a solution was requested. In other words, we've said over and over again, we brought these people out here and asked them their solution to our problem. And I would want to know, what is the problem? Is the problem that we've had break-ins? Is the problem that we want to see people when they're coming? And so
That would be good. No, that would be good to know. I mean, right now, all you have is an attractive
because we have a
nuisance.
solution, to me, I'm not sure we really have a solution to what we stated the problem was.
We've had a couple of incidences where we've suspected somebody, former employees, and the only other people that have access right now would be fire department, because there's a lockbox on the thing. But we have had a couple incidences, and we've gone through and changed all the locks after each one of these. Possibly former employees, or who knows, you know. But all I could do is change the locks.
What have they done, tried to break in or broken in?
One guy just, it was a weekend guy, he came in, he found lights on that he said he shut off around the toolbox, you know, where the tools are. So we, you know. And the other time was about just over a year ago, and I had a former employee who used to live here on the island, and apparently, I don't know what he did, but he was subpoenaed by his landlord after he left. And I thought I took care of it with HR because a subpoena came to me. Our HR people apparently did nothing, and it got back to these guys, and these guys tell me there's a subpoena for one of your former employees. And so I got an HR, and a week later, we had poop all over the garage. And the only way that could happen is if somebody starts up a pump and fills that tank. And I suspect, and he was kind of psycho. I mean, I was kind of glad to get rid of him. In fact, I was extremely glad to get rid of him. I was laying the paperwork trail to get rid of him when he left. But could he have held on to a key, and done that? I don't know,
All right.
Well, I got one question, Joe. Why isn't there a camera shining onto this building where the lab and everything is at?
There's 2 cameras inside there.
Oh, they're inside?
Inside, there's 2.
But I mean, if somebody came in here and walked over there or went into the garage, you could see them, like if the camera should be on the corner of that building.
Well, we had talked about that. I don't remember, because this was 2 years ago now when these guys came through. I don't remember why, because there was maybe an issue of wiring that camera in. Those cameras, I think, are all located where we have fiber optic cable right now. And I think they're all in line with that fiber optic cable. I think that was the issue.
Well, they got 1,500 feet of coax, so obviously they're going to do somewhere.
They're going to, yeah, I mean, it doesn't exist every place, but the main, from the far end of the basin to the main control building, there is fiber optic cable lines.
Are they going to put signs up that say this area under video surveillance or anything of that nature?
Well, I will.
You will? Okay.
I mean, if they don't.
That's probably going to be as good a deterrent as anything.
Well, put something up that looks like a camera, too.
Put a sign up that says, "Beware the dog."
It seems like the options are we could either proceed with this tonight or table it and ask for additional equipment to be looked at. I don't know what their budget sum was. It says it was in the budget.
I'd have to go back and check it.
We're literally spending $20,000. I don't know if we put. I don't see it in our list. Whether it was $30,000 or whatever. It would seem that to me that if there was a way to put some kind of a notice alarm on it, or even an alarm on a couple of the doors, at the same time we did this would really bring a lot more security for quick response. And if eventually you have an automatic gate that the police have access to, then if the alarm ever went off at the station, they could immediately respond. But
even if you went over there and got an alarm company, a local alarm company, and you wanted to put an alarm on some of the doors, that's a pretty simple fix.
Yeah, okay.
In my opinion. I don't know, if you're concerned about an alarm for the building, go over there and bug the doors. And I mean, when the alarm goes off, it goes off at the cop shop.
All right, well, that's something that maybe we're asking that you should look at and get a price on.
Okay, do you want, what do you want? You want to table this, or?
Well, it's up to the commission. I'd be okay with proceeding based on the base that you had the companies come look at it, and it'd be a start, but...
Isn't that a separate issue again?
Yeah, I think we ought to go ahead with it and we can do something different to the system. Let's get going.
Yeah, I agree. This maybe could be referred to as your starter system. If this proves to be beneficial and is doing a good job for us, and you want to add another 2 or 3 cameras to it, I think that's something that could be done readily.
Any further discussion?
Just whatever we do, if we go with however many cameras and a little alarming, let's put the brakes on, because Joe's describing potentially inside jobs, and let's not get a camera fetish about cameraing the whole East River Road or something. I mean, enough is enough. You got to treat sewerage. The inside jobs is another problem, but I don't think we want to let the tail wag the dog at all.
Okay?
Just one question on the mid-state document that's talking about warranty cost at that point. Is that just being dismissed as not necessary, Barry?
What page,
Well,
Bill?
it's the page 39 where it talks about $1,200 for 1 year, $1,600 for 2, and $2,000 for 3. Are we interested in any of that?
I could check into that. Right now, I was just going with the
I mean,
base
we just have a
2-year.
base bid as a request. I didn't know whether that has been dismissed or...
These were probably options, because right now, the bid as it stands, I think, comes with the 2-year repair and replacement warranty.
Phil brings up a good point, that's right, and you said it, all hardware, 2-year repair and replacement, so that warranty thing...
Well, it says full warranty, including labor. It almost appears to me like it's a hardware warranty versus a bumper-to-bumper
Like
type
a roof.
warranty. Yeah.
Like a roof.
I mean, I didn't know whether that was...
Is that per
I can-
camera, or is that for the whole shebang?
I think it would be for the whole shebang.
Should be, it doesn't really sink that, though.
I think that's implied.
Contracts that have a lot of implied provisions, that's the thing. And that can be modified when something is agreed to. So if it covers all cameras, I don't know if you want the warranty or not. If it's only $2,000, it's not a lot of money. But if it's 2,000 times 8,
Ask the question.
yeah, if it's 2,000 times 8, it's a lot more. But you're bringing up the point. This only covers the hardware, doesn't cover the labor.
Right.
That's probably why.
I guess you didn't ask that question about what kind of experience they have with installation, right? In other words, I bought a new car this year, and then 3 weeks after I get it home, I get from GM a proposal for a protection plan, which really made me mad. I have the warranties, and now they want to sell me a protection plan, you know?
I need an additional warranty.
So I don't know, if we have a 2-year, we can gut it out, chances are we won't spend the $2,000. I don't know anything about cameras, if they
It
fail.
looks like the cameras are covered, but the labor wouldn't be.
Wouldn't be,
That's what
yeah.
it looks like.
Most, like the ones they sell in the store and everything like that, I mean, if you go and research that, most of them say that's a bad deal to buy those. I mean, that's
Right,
what
buy
I
the
see.
warranty.
Yeah, to buy the warranty is, it's
Right.
really a bad deal.
Right.
That's their biggest profit margin, is selling you the warranty.
Right.
So I don't have any issue if we don't want it. I wanted to just bring it to the attention that did we consider it, or did we reject it, or do we want to reject it? My personal opinion is I wouldn't buy the warranty. I'd take the hardware warranty as it is, the 2 years, and
That's how I feel.
Yeah,
that be that.
and I think that's all that's included under the base bid.
Right.
is-
If something goes wrong with a camera, at least you got $2,000 you didn't spend. The
Right.
camera's $500.
Right, and you can take it down yourself and
We'll pull up.
Yeah.
Probably.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we go forth with this.
Okay, good, we have a motion? Second. Support. Are there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I appreciate the discussion. Okay, it's now time for the public to comment. We have no one in the audience other than Joe. I have no additional report. We'll go around the table. Any other comments? Ted? Les?
The only thing that I've got to say is, I noticed on the West River Road Bridge, when you're coming on the island, there's a hole in that cement. And every time I go off the bridge, I wonder how much bigger that hole's going to get before the county decides to fix that hole. Because before 2011, we replaced that whole surface on that bridge. And there's a hole in it.
Okay, where are you talking again? On West River Road when you come on the island?
No, on the overpass bridge, on Parkway.
That goes over West River.
It goes over West River Road.
Okay.
There's a hole in it?
It's been there for summer. I noticed even I rode the motorcycle over there to see the hole. There's also another hole in McComb Street by the Kroger's driveway that should be repaired properly.
I think we've reported the one at Kroger's. I'm not aware of, I'll take a look at the one at the bridge.
You should see it every morning.
No, it's dark when I come on, so I'm
All right, well, Barry, you'll take the
I'll look into those.
specifics from Les.
Sure.
And that's very good.
That's the only thing I have.
All right, thank you. Phil?
Nothing further.
John?
Nothing further.
Jim?
I just want to, again, welcome Ron and Dave and Les. This is his second meeting. Welcome to the board, and encourage all of you to talk and communicate with the people with the knowledge. Ted, Bill, Barry have a wealth of knowledge concerning what we're doing here. If you don't understand something, by all means, talk to someone and have a clear understanding of whatever the project is, including what they're talking about, whether it be gates or this, the jargon that's used can be daunting to new people. But get involved, go over and see the Joe and have him take you through the water treatment plant, get to know that. I think it's a big help to this job. I was very happy to be able to stay on this commission as liaison. Ted was probably happy to move over as historian, but I think this is probably the most important commission in this township, and we need everybody's expertise. Everybody here has something different to offer, so we need to be talking to each other and share that knowledge. So I would certainly encourage that of all the new people. Also, just a little update, our Church Road in East River, the water pooling, part of that problem was Sacred Heart or St. Anne's Chapel, putting water, pumping water out of their property, and it had run down the hill and it pools at the end. Well, we finally got them to take care of that problem. I believe their fix will be done this week, the last I heard. So that should help somewhat.
Is that a sump pump discharge?
I believe it was. Yeah, I believe that they actually had three different areas that they were discharging, and it all came down the hill.
Wow.
So that was adding to the pooling of the water, and we know that it became an ice skating rink in the wintertime. So that should help. We still need the fix, by Wayne County on the road. And then finally, I'd just like to wish everybody here, my fellow commissioners, and Lorinda and Barry and Joe, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I look forward to working with you guys from here on out.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Dave?
Nothing except I'm glad to be here.
Very good. Ron?
Nothing for me. I just look forward to working with you guys. I think it should be very interesting and very valuable.
Well, we're glad to have you both here, and everybody. The next meeting would be January 8th, and I guess the question to staff is, the last couple of years, we haven't had a meeting in January. What's your...
At this time right now, I don't see the need for a January meeting. If something were to come up that had to be addressed, we would just call one.
All right, so then the plan would be, then the next meeting would be February 12th.
Yes.
So the only meeting we've ever missed has been the January meeting. It seems like you wind down and then they start working on budget. So the next meeting will be February 12th.
Yes.
Is the plan, unless you call a special.
Yes.
Or you call for the meeting. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those supporting the commission adjourn its meeting. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.